Hi, this is Donna. Welcome to DD Paper Crafts. In today's video we're going to be making this box, and if we pull the top apart, the sides pull down like so, and then you can access the boxes from the top. The boxes I've made are 4 inches long at the widest point. They are 1.5 inches high and they are 2 inches wide. The boxes are very easy to construct once you've created the outer shape, and I've made each of the 3 boxes actually from scraps, and I will go through that in the video. So let me show you how this one was made. We'll start with the 2 sides of the box. So if I show you one of the boxes I've already made, so we're going to make this shape here. You'll need 2 pieces of cardstock, which are 2.5 by 5. And along the 2.5 inch side, we're going to score at 1/2 and 2. Remove the piece from your scoreboard. Take your ruler and a pencil. I'm lining my ruler up with the left-hand side of the cardstock, and the top of my ruler is on the 1/2 inch score line, and I'm going to make a pencil mark at 1/2 inch and at 4.5 inches. Rotate the piece 180 degrees, and we're now going to work on the opposite score line, and we'll make a pencil mark at 7/8 of an inch, 1 3/8 of an inch, 3 5/8 of an inch, and 4 1/8 of an inch. So you all will have 4 pencil marks on the top score line and 2 pencil marks on the bottom score line. Take your stylus and ruler, and we're going to score from the inner pencil mark, so this one on the right hand side, down to this one, and the inner pencil mark on this side down to here. So we have 2 score lines, 2 additional diagonal score lines in the centre. Fold and burnish along the top and the bottom horizontals. And I've made 3 or 4 of these boxes now to try and get it right. And one thing that I have found is on all of the pieces, one of the key elements is to make sure that you burnish, that you get a nice crisp fold on the score line. Take your scissors. I'm going to cut through the pencil mark, and I'm cutting at the point where this diagonal meets the score line. So I'm going to cut up to that point and then just continue the cut to the edge of the cardstock. So I'm cutting a wedge into the tab at the same time and trimming away the excess on this side. So I'm going to do the same on here. Cut up to the pencil, through the pencil line, and up to the end of the cardstock. Rotate the cardstock 180 degrees, and we're now going to cut up to the inner pencil line, so the one which is on the diagonal, and I'm going to cut my wedge so that it almost becomes an extension of the score line. And do the same on this side. And now we'll go back to this left hand one. I'm going to cut from the top edge of the cardstock through the outer pencil line and just continue to give ourselves a 1/2 inch glue tab. It doesn't need to be exact, but this additional line just gives us a guide. So this is how this side looks. I'm going to do the same on this side, and then rotate and cut away this excess corner. So now if you've used pencil, go in and rub out any of your pencil lines, and then we can go in and burnish our diagonals. So our piece is going to be in this orientation. If you fold this long tab under and fold these tabs in, you want to as near as possible, have a nice crisp point in this corner here and this corner here in particular, because these are the parts which sort of stand out the most if you don't quite get the shape right. So if you need to, go in, re-burnish, and if you find that you need to reshape any of the tabs slightly to get a better corner, then you can do that at this stage. So you'll have a pair of these for each box. We're now going to cut our side sections, and for this project I wanted to use up some of the scraps of cardstock. So consequently I've cut each side as a separate piece. Now if you want to, you can measure your lengths, add them all together, allow a 1/2 inch tab to slot down inside the box and cut that from one piece of card. And that, based on my measurements, would need a piece of cardstock which was 10¼ inches long. And you would then, if this was side 1, this side here should be 1 3/4, so your first score line would be at 1 3/4. This side is 4 inches, so your next score line would be at 5 3/4. This side is 1 3/4, so your next score line would be at 7½. And this side is 2 1/4, so that would take you to 9 3/4. And then you would have your 1/2 inch that came down inside to slot in the box. So you can cut it from one long strip if you wish. As I say, I've tried to utilise my scraps, so I've cut my sides independently. And that's how I'm going to show you. The first piece is for the base, and that is 4 inches by 2 inches. You'll have one piece for the lid, which is 3 1/4 inches by 2 inches, and that will be scored at 1/2 inch, rotate 180 degrees and score at 1/2 inch. You'll have two pieces for the sides, and these are 2 1/4 by 2 inches, and along the 2 1/4 inch side, score at 1/2 inch. These are our 4 pieces. We'll work on each of the pieces one at a time. So this piece, which has the 2 score lines in, fold and burnish each of the score lines. I'm going to take a wedge from one of the 1/2 inch glue tabs and shape either end, like so. So this is our hinge. And then, because it's my personal preference, I'm going to round off the corners here, and this is the piece which is going to sit inside the box. So we now have our base and our lid. These two side pieces, again, fold and burnish. And because it's my preference, I have chosen to put a finger notch into the end. If you plan on putting a finger notch into the end, you may want to add your DSP onto this piece first. For these particular pieces, I cut my notch and then added my DSP, and I couldn't get my punch in to the width of the box. So what I did to accommodate that, I took my square of DSP and sat it on the side of the box in the position that I wanted, and marked with a pencil where the continuation of the punch of the notch would be, so like so. I then placed this piece inside my cutter, lined up the pencil marks with the edge of the cutter, cut my notch, and then stuck it onto the side of the box like so. So you can add these pieces later if you so wish, but I just want to take the opportunity as we're going through the video to tell you what it is that I've learned along the way. So I will cut my notch in here, and then on both of these pieces we will take a wedge from the ends of the glue tab. Throughout the 3 different boxes that I've made, I've tried 3 different methods of construction, and I'm going to show you the one which I found to give me the neatest look, particularly when it comes to going round the corners here. So we start by taking our 4-inch piece and we're going to add glue to the long glue tabs and adhere those in the first instance either side of this piece. Take your time to get your pieces lined up, and what I've found is on each piece I start gluing at the same end first, so therefore if there is any slight overhang at all on this longer piece, I can trim from one end if I need to. So I'm going to get those lined up, and you can see here that there is a very less than a 1/16 of an inch overhang on this piece. So what I can do is, because the overhang is all at one end, just take my long scissors and trim across from side to side and just get rid of that excess in one go. So that now lines up. We then take our second piece. I'm going to add glue to the glue tab, sit this in between, line everything up so I've got it in between my two score lines lined up at the end. Once your end panel is in place, I'm going to add glue to these glue tabs and pull around the end panel, taking my time to try and get as crisp a point as possible in the corner. Burnish those into place. Try and make sure that you don't move anything as you're burnishing. And if I fold the two top tabs out, you can see that there's a slight overhang at the top of this piece beyond the top of the side panels. So again, if this happens for you, just go in and take your scissors and just cut straight across. So now we're going to add in our second end. I'm going to add glue. I'm going to add this in exactly the same way. That's the two ends in. And now we take our lid piece. I'm going to start by just fitting the lid, pushing in the tab into the front. And I want to make sure that the tab goes in easily. So if I need to at this stage, I could either just take a slight piece off the side of here. Alternatively, I can reshape these tabs so that this corner has got a bit more of a gap if I need to. So I'm just going to trim so, and now if I sit this in, I can see that fits in there a lot better now. Add glue to this hinge at the back, pull the top tabs out of the way, sit your lid in the back. You want the score line of the lid to be just above the top edge, like so. Take your time to get that in. Burnish that down, making sure you don't move anything. And now if we fold the two tabs in at the top, you can see that lid fits nicely into place. So if you follow that process 3 times, that will give you your 3 boxes. The next thing is to add your DSP on, and I'm adding the DSP at this stage before we complete the final wrap, because we might all be using different thicknesses, DSP, etc. And I just felt I would get a better fit if I'd got however many layers I wanted to add on, this side, this side, this side, and this side first, before I completed the wrap section. I'll give you the sizes that I've used. I've got approximately a 1/8 of an inch gap all the way round. The DSP for the two end sections was 1 3/4 of an inch by 1.5 inches. So it's 1 3/4 by 1.5. The DSP for the top was 2 inches by 1 3/4 inches. And for the sides, I started with a piece which was 3.5 by 1 1/4, and this narrows to 2 1/8 at the top. What I would recommend is you cut yourself a piece which is 3.5 by 1 1/4, sit it where you want the corners to be, and then just take a pencil and mark at the top that much of a gap, for instance, and then you would cut from there to there, and then you can use that as your template for each piece that you need. And in terms of adding the DSP on, the only side you really need to make sure you don't add any extra dimension onto is the lid pieces, because the boxes are going to sit in this orientation. So obviously you don't want to add elements, 3D elements, or too many layers onto this top section here. So now we want to start to create the wrap, and in order to do that, we first of all want to get our boxes into shape. So I'm going to have the blue one at the bottom. The red one is going to sit on top of the blue one like so, and then the yellow one is going to sit in like so. This is effectively the side profile of the boxes, and we want to measure from corner to corner. So this is 5 7/8 of an inch. I would suggest that you measure yours just to make sure. So we have our base for the wrap, and this is based on the length of the side, which we said was 5 7/8. And then I've added on an extra inch so that we can have a 1/2 inch glue tab at either end. So you'll have one piece which is 6 7/8 by 2 inches, and on each end score at 1/2 inch. Fold and burnish along the score lines, and then take a wedge from the ends of each of the glue tabs. For the remaining sides, so in this case the red and the yellow, and I'll just bring my box in here, you'll need a piece which is the length of the side of the triangle, so 5 7/8, plus however much you want to allow for your handle at the top. So I've allowed 1 3/4 inches, so therefore my strips for the right side and for the yellow side were 7 5/8 by 2 inches. So you might want a shorter handle, you might want to have a longer handle. It's entirely up to you. The strip of cardstock, which in my case was 7 5/8, so 5 7/8 plus 1 3/4 inches. At 1 3/4 inches, I scored through the cardstock. So this gives me this score line here. So you'll do this on both of the longer pieces. And then when you join your pieces together, so this was our base piece, this is going to sit in the middle like so. The ends which have got the score lines in them, so this end here and this end here, they're going to be at the outside edge, so that when you bring your piece round and wrap your triangle round, these two pieces will come together like so, and your score lines are effectively going to meet like so. And you may, at this stage, before you glue the piece together, you might want to add an aperture into here, you might want to add some holes into here, you might want to cut a square into here. I would do that before you add the wrap onto the outside of the box. So let's go and glue the boxes on now. So I'm going to take my blue box, and my blue box is going to be adhered like so, and then this piece is going to come up round. So I'm going to use my construction glue, add lots of glue to the bottom of here, sit my box up to the edge, make sure that's sitting nicely, and just let that one dry. So that's sitting on there nicely. So now I'm going to take my red box, and if you remember, my red box was sitting in this orientation. So I'm going to add glue to the base of the red box. Make sure you go right up into the corners, but you don't want any glue to be seeping over the ends onto this box. Sit your box on top. If you prefer, you can do it this way round, so it might be easier to lay it down in this orientation. Wrap the second side around and sit that in place. So the wrap is adhered onto the base of the red box. This piece here is still free. Now if I want to, I'm going to stand that up and just make sure that that wrap is pulled. Hold that down with my fingers and just make sure that wrap is pulled around tightly. I want to make sure that there isn't any gaping, or there isn't too much gaping here. Once I'm happy and my glue started to set, I can lift this back down and just let that dry in place. And now I've got side number 3. So side number 3 is going to sit in this orientation, like so. So I'm going to add glue to the base of this one, sit this up against here and wrap this around. So I'm going to stand everything up, let everything sit. So my wrap is now all together. What I'm going to do is add my DSP onto the red and to the yellow sides, add it onto the top section here as well, and then I'm just going to punch a couple of holes for some ribbon. So here's the piece now with the DSP added on the sides. These bits were 5 3/8 of an inch by 1 3/4, and the top sections were 1.5 by 1 3/4, but obviously that would depend on whatever size you decided to use for this top part. So we can see, just get rid of the ribbon, that just pulls down like so. We've got some nice size boxes. You can see the box has a nice profile. It has a nice look to it when it's standing up, and I'm really happy with how this one has come together. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel, and until next time, thanks for watching.